Some of these fighters you'll know, some of them you might not. And while I definitely understand that there are probably a few fighters here and there on this list that could have been replaced by others, for me, these are some of the prospects that I'm most looking forward to seeing as they sign their next fight within the UFC. Women's Strawweight, Tatiana Suarez. It's been over 2 years since we've seen the fighter dubbed by some as the female Khabib in action, and though her inactivity has given her ascent a certain Nurmagomedov-esque quality to it, mirroring Khabib's own stuttering rise through the lightweight ranks, I do see this excellent strawweight prospect as a real threat to the belt in the near future. In her 5 UFC outings, she's scored 5 victories, and managed to find 3 finishes, one over the current number 3 contender Carla Esparza, and for my money, is clearly still one of the best 5 115-pound fighters on the planet, even with her long, drawn-out absence from the octagon in mind. Women's Flyweight, Miranda Maverick. Is it fair of me to give the Flyweight vote to a fighter who just lost? Well, as far as Miranda Maverick is concerned, her controversial recent defeat to Macy Barber, though it certainly showed me some of her limitations, it still wasn't enough to turn me off the idea that she's the best prospect at 125 pounds right now. I, like a lot of you, believe that she won that fight. She has already established herself over the course of her entire career as a competent finisher, and given that she's only 24 years old, time is well and truly on her side, as she looks to find a resurgence in her attack on Valentina Shevchenko's seemingly unconquerable crown. Women's Bantamweight, Josiane Nunes. When it comes to singling out a contender who might be able to trouble Amanda Nunes at the top of the division, if the passage of time doesn't get her first, I'd imagine it'll have to be a power puncher finding their mark that'll do the trick. And when it comes to her namesake, Josiane Nunes, who is riding a 5-fight streak of TKO or KO finishes, that pure athleticism makes me think that she'll find her way into title contention sooner rather than later. Seriously, check out that knockout she scored in her debut over Bea Maleki. As vicious a knockout shot as you're ever likely to see in this division. Flyweight, Manel Kape. Sometimes you just gotta have faith in these young guys and their ability to improve. And though the 27-year-old Manel Kape came into the UFC with considerable hype after an electric run in Rizin, I found his opening pair of fights that he lost, to be highly frustrating affairs. He just looked a bit flash, a bit too showy, clearly capable of turning up the heat and offering more, but in the end just bringing very little substance to the table. His third matchup obviously saw him score an incredible first-round flying knee against Ode Osborne, but I don't know, for me, I think that there's enough of a foundation with this guy that his explosiveness and overall athleticism could well turn him into a very interesting and potentially dangerous addition to the flyweight top 5. Bantamweight, Song Yadong. Respect to the Sugar Show, but after all this talk and hype, I'm just not prepared to call him a prospect anymore. He technically is, of course, but he's a bit of an obvious shout, and I still think he's gifted, but let's move on. As far as the Bantamweight division goes, I like O'Malley's fellow unranked up-and-comer Song Yadong as the safest bet and the best proven prospect among the Bantamweight crop. Yadong, who switched over to Team Alpha Male a few years back, just looks to be a very well-rounded fighter, already besting guys like Marlon Vera, Casey Kenny and Alejandro Perez. And yes, he fell short against Kyler Phillips, a fight that saw him forced to rely on his chin on more than one occasion. But this guy is 23, and he's one hell of a lot of fun to watch. And if he's already disestablished within the stacked Bantamweight top 20 or so, the question is, how good can he get? If you're enjoying this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads, before leaving a comment to let YouTube's algorithms know that we're fast becoming one of the best MMA channels on the platform. Featherweight, Ilia Topuria. He's got incredible athleticism, a strong Brazilian jiu-jitsu base beneath him, and he just knocked out Ryan Hall with one of the most brutal answers to a tricky and unique style that you're ever likely to see. Ilia Topuria looks like he already has all of the tools needed to be a contender, which is a very scary thought considering how stacked the featherweight division is. He's only 24 years old, but his polished submission game and one-shot knockout power already make him one of the most well-rounded fighters in the division right now. That victory over Ryan Hall was a big one. Don't be fooled by its somewhat odd nature. Up until that point, nobody within the UFC had really even come close to challenging Ryan Hall, and Topuria just ran through him. This guy is for real, folks. Lightweight, Brad Riddell. As part of the ever-growing wave of excellent talents to emerge from New Zealand in recent years, Brad Riddell has been making some serious waves at 155 pounds, singling himself out as the real fighter's fighter among the division's plentiful supply of prospects. He's a brawler, a gutsy, determined striker who packs power in both hands. And while I would have given the nod to Rafael Fiziev, who coincidentally is Riddell's next opponent, even though I do see Fiziev's potential as probably a bit higher, Brad Riddell's fighting style is just way too up my street to ignore. As for who wins that fight, The odds are probably going to favour Fiziev, but for my money, that is one of the year's most intriguing bangers. Welterweight, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Out of all of the fighters I've named on this list, I don't think there's a single one that has a ceiling quite as high as Shavkat Rakhmonov. Ever since he debuted with a first-round guillotine of Alex Oliveira, I've watched as the hype levels behind this guy have steadily increased. Taking on the always game and ferociously athletic cowboy in your debut is no easy feat, and for him to then follow that up with a clinic against Michel Prazeres, a guy who had just gone 8-2 in his last 10 fights. Yeah, Shavkat is being tested, and he's being tested early, and overall, judging by the clinical and fluid performances he has given in those tests, I see him as a future champion. Middleweight, Andre Muniz. I really would have gone with Mahmoud Muradov for the middleweight pick, but upon seeing Andre Muniz armbar Ronaldo Jacare Souza after promising him that he was the better grappler of the two, yeah, that kinda did it for me. And Muniz did come into the UFC as an established submission threat, so they weren't idle words, but he took that fight against a BJJ legend, vowed that he would prove himself to be better, and then tapped him in the first round. I don't care what age he was, that's incredibly impressive. And yeah, I know that there are probably prospects with better overall potential within the 185-pound mix, but I'm on Team Muniz here, just for the sheer cheek of it all. Light heavyweight, Jamal Hill. Seriously, as far as this list goes, Jamal Hill's name was very nearly replaced by the guy who just beat him in Paul Craig, just because of how much I adore Craig's all-or-nothing submission heavy style. But even with that brutal defeat in mind, I still think that Jamal Hill is going to be the next unheralded rising talent who manages to break into the upper echelons of the 205-pound weight class, probably within the next 12 months. Indeed, that loss was a shocking one, but this guy has all of the necessary attributes to be a major hit, and he brings a level of violence to the table that makes him incredibly fun to watch. So yeah, long recovery time on the cards for Hill, but some big questions to be answered when he returns. Heavyweight, Alexander Romanov. Look up the word heavyweight in the dictionary and you'll likely see a picture that looks somewhat similar to Alexander Romanov. Well, maybe not just yet, but as this guy continues to ascend through the heavyweight ranks, there are many among us who feel as though he is headed directly for the divisional throne. With a wealth of wrestling experience behind him and a pair of massive bricks for fists, this unbeaten Moldovan standout possesses a level of physicality that's rare, even amongst heavyweights, and for my money he looks to be on a collision course with the top 15. Seriously, this guy is huge. But what do you make of my picks? And who are your own top 3 prospects in the UFC right now, under whatever prospect criteria you adhere to? Do let us know your opinions in the comment section below, we always love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.